All right, so our very first presentation on this webinar series is going to be on backyard chickens. Again, your host tonight, myself, Lacey Davidson Ferguson. I'm a planning coordinator. I work out of our business development division at the West Virginia Department of Agriculture. The region that I cover is over here in the southwest part of the state. We've got a couple other planning coordinators in the northern part of the state, as well as the eastern panhandle, and a new addition to the southeastern part of the state. Ashley Amos is also on the call. And then Dane Gaiser, he's our Veterans and Warriors to Agriculture Program Coordinator. Say hey, Dane.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, glad to be on the call here. So, any questions you got, feel free to shoot them my way, and I'll try to help out.
All right, and quick overview. So we're gonna start with a presentation, and I'll jump to this page real quick, from our first presenter and also a mentor for those of you that are interested in pursuing backyard poultry. Eric Blend with the Blended Homestead. Say hey, Eric. You might be muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we gotcha. We did have you. There you are. Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Awesome. And then we also have on the call our other presenter and mentor, Park Ferguson. He's sitting here beside me, so I'm just going to turn the video around so you can see.
Hey there.
There he is. I'm not sure.
Hey,
if
everyone.
I'm not sure if you guys can see us because I can't see myself anymore. But we see Eric. All right. Okay, so to give you a quick overview, we're gonna first hear from Eric at the Blended Homestead. He's gonna walk us through his operation, talking about his broiler chickens and also his pasture layers. And then we'll hear from Park. We'll take questions during Eric's presentation. So again, go ahead and type those in the chat box, or if you're joining us by the phone, just let us know if you have a question. And then we'll hear from Park on processing on farm in West Virginia. We're really fortunate to have processing exemption where you can process up to 20,000 birds on your farm. So Park is going to walk us through that process, what it looks like, and field questions there. And then towards the end of the presentation, we'll just briefly share with you some resources out of our business development division. You'll hear from a few of us that work all over the state for your Department of Agriculture, and share some resources where you can get in touch with us and how we can help you. And then we'll have some time, hopefully at the end, where we can chat a bit more. So we will go ahead and get started. Eric, anything you want to kind of tee up before we play your video? Anything you want to start with before we launch the really awesome video you pre-recorded?
Yeah, we started this about 4 years ago, and we've slowly grown. But the video that you'll be watching, we have it just gives an overview of how we raise our chickens and some things that we've learned along the way. And if you have any questions or anything, I'll watch the chat box, and then we can answer questions afterward as well.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and pull the video up and make sure you guys can see it and hear it. Share my screen.
Hey everybody, this is Eric Blend from the Blended Homestead. Thanks for watching the West Virginia Department of Agriculture Homesteading Series for all of our veterans. First off, thank you for what you have done and what you do to protect our country. Without that, I wouldn't be able to do this, and we really appreciate that. We hang a flag right in front of our house every day for all the veterans that have fought for us in the past and fight for us now, so thank you. I first wanted to get off and tell you about our pastured broilers system that my wife and I use. So we lease this land. We currently lease 5 acres, and we've done chickens. This is our 4th year. We started out doing our first year with 15 chickens. Last year we grew to raising over 900 in just these 3 tractors. So this is a chicken tractor. This is, if you've heard from Joel Salatin, this is a design similar to his. So we use 10 by 10 chicken tractors, and it's covered on the back side to decrease wind during cold days, and then also to help them get out from under the sun in the warm days. The trick with a chicken tractor is to build it light enough so that you can move, but heavy enough to keep away predators. Predators are the #1 thing that you're going to deal with in homesteading. So having a plan from day one is going to help you out. So what we do with our all of our broiler chickens is we actually run these in with our laying hens. So I'll show you our laying hens here pretty soon. So right here, just last week, we were raising all of our chickens right here. We had about 200 chickens in these 3 tractors, about 60 or 70 in each, and then it would get moved every day. So if you look back, that was where they were. So we took our chickens last Wednesday, so this hasn't had any meat chickens on it for approximately 5 days. So timing is really important for us. We are rotational. We practice rotations on our farm. And so by doing that, we move our meat chickens every day. Our layers get moved at least every 2 weeks, sometimes even more than that, depending on what the land's telling us. So if it looks like they've torn it up or we have a lot of rain coming through, then we'll just move them again. But it's a simple process that from day one we've created a system so that we don't have to put in large amounts of labor. Trying to minimize your cost of labor is important when running a homestead business. So we have our 3 tractors right here. While we have our broilers, we have to feed them. So we get feed mixed at a local feed mill. You can get, every person that raises chickens is going to have a different mix, different exact amounts of sunflower seeds or corn or soybean in your feed, but it just depends on the kind of chicken that you're raising. So broilers need a higher percentage to start out, like a 20, even a 22% protein, which is going to be increased protein so they can grow quick. Our pasture chickens are raised for about 8 weeks, plus or minus, depending on processing with our USDA processor, but we time it so that the day that we get our chicks, we have our processing date set. So we try to, have as good a birds as possible, but we can't because we are taking them to a USDA processor. For us, it is about an hour-and-a-half drive to take our chickens over. So we have to deliver our chickens, and then we will have to make another trip to pick up our crates and everything. But the feed, we will go pick up our feed and have them mixed in 500-pound increments. We were seeing with all these chickens, they would go through it depends on how many chickens you have and the age, but they're going to go through feed. And the more feed the more grain and feed that you give to your chickens, the bigger they're going to grow, especially when raising a Cornish cross breed like we do. So we use these waterproof containers. You can get them from Sam's Club for $10. And we use these for layers because they're easily movable. We can break them down and stack them to conserve space. They're just really handy to have around. We actually started using these because we started working with a local brewery, and we would get their used spent brewer's grain, and we would feed it and supplement to our layers, our broilers, and our pigs as well. So after they're fed and they get moved every day, then we're going to load them up into poultry crates. So poultry crates is one of the things with our homestead. We're farmers, but we are we are a business. And so keeping costs low is very important for us to make sure that, we aren't, taking a loss on everything we send out. And then so also we want to keep our prices as low as for customers. So these are wooden poultry crates that I've built. I can send, if anyone's interested, this is a really easy plan, but I have a hinge on the top and they open right up. They're not the prettiest, but after cost of building all these, I have about $10 in each in parts. But then if you buy a nice plastic one that you can reuse for 20 years, it's going to be substantially more, about $60 a piece. So my thinking is, if I can keep my costs as low to start, if at some point my wife and I decide we don't want to do pastured chickens, we could change out, and then we don't have $2,000 worth just in poultry crates to deliver all these. Each one of these crates typically will hold 11, 12 chickens going to the processor. So my wife and I, we have a small Jeep that we will load up our chickens on a trailer, a simple, I think it's a 5x10 trailer, stack them up and strap them down, and then we'll head down the highway. But keeping costs low is very important, but then also making sure you have good quality. These crates, when you think about it, the days we're taking chickens to the processor, it's only 3 days a year. So we don't want to invest in something that we're only going to be able to use 3 times out of the year. So I'm going to go over here and I'll show you exactly how we move these every day. These chicken tractors, they're designed where we have a 5-gallon bucket, which when it's the warmest, we probably have to fill this up about twice a day. And then we have a nipple system where there are poultry nipples that run to it so they can drink as much as they'd like. There are nicer systems that you can, even if you're growing, you can run one line and have continuous water flow to all your chickens. But right now this works perfectly fine for us. But you need to be able to find a system that works for you. So every morning, picture I'd have 60 or 70 chickens in here, and before I go to work, I'll come out. I've designed these so that they'll have wheels on the sides. And then I have nails, or I have screws in the side, so that I'll put the screw wherever, so I can lift this up enough so it'll clear, but I don't want it to have a large gap where chickens can be able to escape while I'm moving the tractors. And of course, sometimes it doesn't work the best. As a farmer, you have to realize that and adapt. So sometimes I'll just come out and every day and even with one side that fell down, it's perfectly fine. I'm just moving it 10 feet each day. So you could even hook these up. That's without any tractors or anything. With chickens, it sounds good to move them with a side-by-side or something, but if you have that vehicle, either a four-wheeler, utility vehicle, or anything, running right here, the chickens are going to run away from you. So, creating that where you can even have a winch and you can pull them, but just making it so that you can move them every day is important. They'll get fresh grass, but then also everything that they leave behind, they don't live on their poop. Every day they get new grass. And that's really important to know that our animals had the best life possible. And what we say here is there's only one bad day on our farm instead of an entire life. These chickens would be living in confinement houses, packed to the gills. Our chickens get sun every day. They see, what rain is, and that's really one of our happiest days. Is we can take our chickens, and the first day they see grass, it's great. But So we'll to get into the chickens, or to move them up into the chicken tractors, we have to start them in what's called a brooder, and that is really a chick daycare. We're heat lamps where they're really small, so we'll have them in there approximately 3 weeks, and then they'll be growing, getting enough feathers on them so that they can handle those variations in temperature and they can deal with wet. If you would take chicks, we live right on a nice big road, and obviously we don't have any problems at all. It's really nice. But with the chicks in the brooder, you just have to make sure that they're big enough so they can handle coming outside. And that's one of the challenges. Is you will have losses because of cold temperatures or cold nights, but being able to minimize your losses is what can really help your homestead. So each one of these, so just for numbers, if you get a pad of paper out, so this is a 10 by 10 chicken tractor. You can easily hold 60 chickens in here. So if we measure it out, they're in the brooder for 3 weeks, and then they're out here for 5 weeks, because their life is 8 weeks to get a finished about a 4.5-5 pound chicken. So they're out here 5 weeks and they're moved every day. So to raise 60 chickens, you don't need a huge farm, especially in rotation grazing. You do not need a big farm. It's actually more work than what you need. But we're going to be moving this every day. So all you would need is an area 10 feet wide by 350 feet. And I got 350 because our chicken tractors are 10 feet wide and 10 feet long. And then this chicken tractor being moved every day for 5 weeks is 350 feet. So an area, and you don't have to go in one straight line. You could even start out and you do a U, so that'd be a 20-foot section by 175 feet. I mean, it's really being able to minimize size. You don't need 100 acres. And then with this, we had all of our laying hens in and around. So we're going to go up and show you our laying hens and what we do with them, and how they get fresh grass and everything. How we rotate them similarly, but a little different than our pasture chickens.
All right, guys, I'm going to pause there for a second. This is Lacey again with the Department of Agriculture. If you're just tuning in, we're hearing from Eric Blend at Blended Homestead. I'm going to pause for a second before we transition to layers and just kind of open up for questions about Eric's setup. I know there were some coming in on the chat box, but if anyone has questions they want to ask Eric before we transition, we can take those now.
I've got one.
You're on.
Okay, I've got a question for you, Eric. With your watering system there, I like how you do the PVC. Do you adjust the height, or do you have a need to do that? I'm just curious how you treat them, especially when they're young and you first put them out.
Yeah, what we do, so according to the book, you're supposed to raise them up. They'll even have measurements for the age of the chicken and the height, because you want to have the nipple right above, so when the chicken will get from the water, it won't be pecking it from the side. But what I found out, it's easier to have it at a higher height and then just take a 2x4 and slide it in there, because when you adjust the height, right now the only way that I have is I'll move the chicken tractor and I'll get in with all the chickens and then raise it up. So I found it's just easier to give them a little more room when it's taller and just slide a 2x4 in there.
That's awesome.
And then I have learned as well, if you look at the end, so it comes, I fill up the 5-gallon bucket and I have a valve there, run it to a PVC and then the nipplers. And then if you have it on the end, if you have a butterfly valve that you're able to open it up, that does make it a lot easier to clean out. If you have stagnant water in there too, the small lines, I probably have a 3/8 inch line, it can sometimes get clogged, but we'll just put some apple cider vinegar in when I know, but it's normally not too stagnant, but I'll put some apple cider vinegar in, and that will kill off any problems, and then they can consume it, and it would help them. So.
Thank you.
Eric, this is Lacey. We had a couple of questions come in on the chat box here. Russ Dean says, do you move the tractors every day? I think you told us in the video there you did. Does the chicken pick the grass clean every day?
Yeah, so we do move it every day. Do the chickens pick it clean every day? Not necessarily. The books say that their consumption is about 20% of the grass. I've seen less than that. It also depends on the height of the grass. If you have it right about ankle height, is perfect for laying hen or for broilers. But we don't want them to pick it clean. We are just wanting it to. We're wanting it to just to disturb it just a little bit, and then them to leave their presence behind, and then move them on. I mean, it was enough that you'll see our laying hens with the next video, but these were actually inside the laying hens, so it really didn't really disturb it too much. And then if it would disturb it, then you can just move it twice a day. It's really fairly easy and not too difficult to move.
Great. Another question came in, Eric, from Autumn. And this, you just mentioned the book again. What book are you referencing? Autumn is asking.
Well, specifically, I would start out with Pastured Poultry Profits by Joel Salatin. It was written in the mid-90s, and it's still very relatable today. But also just in general of quote unquote what the people say, chicken spacing and everything. Just in mind, we are part of pastured poultry groups on Facebook. We've made a lot of connections with other people doing it so that we can see what they're doing and work together to try to make a good system for everyone to work.
Awesome. And one more question. Andy J asked, when you take the chickens to the processor, are you selling them to the processor, or do you get them back finished? Or are you getting the finished process hen back or chicken back?
Yeah, so we'll take our chickens to the processor. It is Pleasant Valley Poultry out of Baltic, Ohio, and we've thanks to the Department of Agriculture, we did get our new label approved. So we are certified pasture raised, and we have a USDA logo. So we'll drop them off, and then it takes approximately about a week, and then they will give us a call, and we'll go and pick up. That's what I was saying, that having the difficulty of having a processor an hour and a half away, you have to drive over to drop them off in the crates, and then we'll go the following week, and then we'll pick them up all packaged, just like you get from the store, and then we'll take our crates back as well.
Great. And we do have one more. James asked, have you tried to mount wheels or skids onto your tractors to make it easier to move?
Yeah, if you look up chicken tractors, there are about 1 million different ideas. One way that I would, that does make it challenging, the ground. So we would have to get in the chicken tractors to get them out, which is an adventure. But yeah, you can do. I've seen people use recycled skis that they'll mount underneath, or you can take PVC, like a 4-inch piece of PVC, and then cut it in half. But yeah, you don't. I wouldn't suggest having permanent wheels on, because you don't want to have a gap. You don't want to have a gap because when the chickens are really small, they'll find that gap. Especially when you're moving, the ground, my ground right here really isn't super level. And so when we're moving it, we'll always have some scrap pieces of 2x4 to fill in the gaps, just to make sure that they will stay in when we're moving them and when they're in there.
And once one finds its way out, they all find their way out.
Yeah, it's like boom, 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 and then you're like trying to run around catching them. And Yeah, it's an adventure, but it's a lot of fun.
Great. Okay, I think that wraps up questions for right now. So we're going to go ahead and push play again. We're going to transition to seeing your laying hen setup, mobile laying hen setup. So I will take us back to the video now.
Just wanted to show you guys up here with our egg layers. So right here down below is where our meat chickens were and where these were yesterday. I moved this all up myself. A system that we've designed like this, one person could easily move. We have 135 chickens in here right now. One person could easily move this in easily less than an hour or two. But we, you know, and with us, we're moving these every 2 weeks. But the one thing that's important is our fence. We use Premier One electric netting, but you can find any kind of mobile poly wire fencing. This is just a light plastic fence. We currently have in here, this is 300 feet of fencing. But as you can see, if one person wants to move it, it's very easy. You can just lift up and move. And this makes it really important because, you know, everything's not a perfect, you know, everything's not exactly the same. Certain areas, if we get a lot of rain, sometimes we will have to move and take them off of this. So, right, we don't want to create erosion, and we don't want our animals to. So, with an easy fence like this, just on a day when you're up here checking, it's, oh, we got a problem here, and then you just take it up, move it, and of course this electric is turned off. Just like that. If we want to, we could move it all the way over. We could make this smaller. But the trick with rotational grazing is having the right amount of animals at the right age on the right size paddock. So a paddock is a determined size of an area that you keep animals in. Whether that's permanent fencing or mobile fencing like us. Smaller paddocks get more impact, so you're going to have to be moving them more often. But then we don't want to have a paddock so big that we're never moving them. We want the paddock to be just small enough, just so that we want the paddock to be small enough, just so that we can have just the right amount of impact, hopefully. But weather conditions will change that constantly. You just have to always keep up. As you look over here too, we have our pastured pigs that we keep. We have 8 pigs over here. We have 4 different breeds. We have a similar fence for them as well, but that one is specific for pigs. If you're interested in pigs, you can, or chickens or anything, obviously get a hold of me. We want to have people come up and show you what we've done. This is now our 3rd year raising pigs, and I can't imagine any other way to raise animals. But with our chickens, so the essential things with a coop, for chickens, you're going to have to keep them and get them out of the weather somehow. So a coop could be simply anything with a roof over it. You do not have to have sides. As you can see, we have wire here on the side so we can increase airflow. And our coop, as my wife camera lady comes over and helps out, our coop has a 1-inch wire floor. And then these are our roosts. Roosts are supposed to be off the ground, but our chickens love it in here. We've used this coop this would be our 2nd year using this, and we only had to clean it out once. The reason why is because we used to use the milk cartons in the back as our nesting box. But they had hay in it, and then or straw in it, and they would scratch it out, and then they would poop on the straw, and it would build up. But since we figured that out, and we don't have the nesting boxes in here, all the poop just falls right down. It's awesome. This is 8 by 8, so it'd be 64 square feet. If you start looking at numbers, it'll tell you can, depending on what website or who you ask, they'll tell you how many chickens, if you have one that big, you can't put more than 60 or 70 In an 8x8 coop like this, we have 135 chickens, but they're only in here at night. So it doesn't need to be the Rolls Royce. And keeping our costs low, as I said before, is very important. But they're going to get in here at night, and we will actually, when we get new chickens, and especially since this is new for us, starting year number 2, we filled it in, and we started with last year we had approximately 80 or 100 in here, and then we saw that there was ample room for more, so then we added another 20, just adding a little more. And we haven't had any issues at all. So an 8x8, 64 square feet, it's 135 chickens. That's not all laying chickens. One important thing about our hens are the roosters. You're supposed to have one rooster per 10 hens to make sure that everyone has their ladies. You don't want to have too many roosters. That's where you get a lot of fighting. But also with having an area 300 linear feet around, these roosters will, and all these chickens, there is a pecking order, and they will fight, and they will have their arguments just like humans do, but we have ample room for them to get away, and so they can still live a happy life. You might want to wonder why we have a bucket right here. This is the way that our coop is. This collects water. When it rains, this bucket will collect water. That will minimize the time that we have to water these every day. If we can collect it right here, then I can just take it and then dump it right out, into the waters for them. But our primary source of watering are these IBC totes. So these are 300-gallon totes. If you get these, you want to make sure that they're food grade and that they are washed out sufficiently. 300 gallons of water will feed laying hens longer, at least 2 weeks. Typically, we will use one of these, and then we get a fitting so you can run it from an IBC tote fitting onto a garden hose fitting, so that we'll have a valve at the end of the hose, so we have water wherever we want. But you want to have this water above, and we just gravity feed. We only use one trash pump down here. It is approximately 300 feet away. We have a 2-inch trash pump. Costs about $250. And then this year, what we've done is we've ran 1.25 inch black poly pipe. We've attached it to our 2-inch pump, and then we'll pump that water up. Now it'll only pump up so far, but if you can have a water source that is above your animals, you're good to go. It makes it so much easier having that water on demand. When we first started with these, we were carrying 5-gallon buckets out. It's really good if you want to work out, but I want to make it easy. I want to make it enjoyable for when I take care of my animals. So what we'll do is we'll fill these up. So that one's full, just sitting and waiting. And of course these are down below, but I just moved these up. So that one will be empty next week, and then I'll be moving it up and then filling it up above so that I have water whenever I need it. With the feed, this is the feed that we use. It's a mixture and of course these are down below, but I just moved these up, so that one will be empty next week, and then I'll be moving it up and then filling it up above so that I have water whenever I need it. With the feed, this is the feed that we use. It's a mixture of rolled oats, corn, soybean, black oil, sunflower seed, and then we get a mixture of minerals and micronutrients that will help supplement them to make sure they get all their minerals that they need. And then we just have these hanging. We also supplement chickens for nice strong eggs. We'll need oyster shell or some form of limestone. This bag is about $10. With our laying hens, with 135, we're going through a 50-pound bag about every 2 or 3 days, depending on how much they eat. And you can even, you're supposed to have this free choice so they can eat as much as they want. So we encourage scratching. So we'll actually toss them on the ground, and then if they need it, they can eat it as much as they want. And then we'll also, sometimes we'll put it in their feed, just as long as it will be sufficient. This is our nesting box. Every chicken that is going to lay eggs needs somewhere to lay it, but a nesting box is just a nice, quiet, dark place for where they can go in. Hens like their privacy, just like ladies. They just want a room by themselves, left alone, nice and dark. But it's also funny. This is actually an old one from an old confinement house. So we've taken this and just added it on to our chicken, or to our, what we're calling this, the chickshaw. And then with 135 chickens in here, the amount that they poop at night is going to be too much for 2 weeks, and it'll burn the soil. So one thing that I'll do every 2 or 3 days, or whenever I'm feeling like it, I'll take the feeders off. Close up the door on the side. I use this for straw for the nesting boxes. And then I'll move it. So I'll make sure I don't run over any chickens. And then all I'm doing is moving this just so that when they poop, it will disperse the nitrogen across all of the ground. It's best when you move it to not move it onto a bare spot. It's always good to have good growing stuff there that could start consuming that nitrogen when it becomes available. But you can see they enjoy this feed. And then I'll take this, hook it right back up. But we keep these feeders full all the time. With a small flock, you don't have to do that. Approximately a quarter a cup or a quarter a pound of food per chicken per day. So it's not really very much. 135 chickens right now for us go through 500 pounds of feed in between 10 and 11 days. So it does add up, but we're right now getting 80, 90 eggs a day. So with that, this system, if we wanted to at night, when all of our chickens go up in, you can actually close the coop door, hook it up to your lawn tractor, ATV, four-wheeler, take the fences down, throw them on top, and then you have literally a chicken kit that you can move wherever you'd like on your property and wherever you need them. So eat it as much as they want, and then we'll also, sometimes we'll put it in their feed, just as long as it will be sufficient. This is our nesting box. Every chicken that is going to lay eggs needs somewhere to lay it. But a nesting box is just a nice, quiet, dark place for where they can go in. Hens like their privacy, just like ladies. They just want a room by themselves, left alone, nice and dark. But it's also funny. This is actually an old one from an old confinement house. So we've taken this and just added it on to our chicken, or to our, what we're calling this, the chickshaw. And then with 135 chickens in here, the amount that they poop at night is going to be too much for 2 weeks, and it'll burn the soil. So one thing that I'll do every 2 or 3 days, or whenever I'm feeling like it, I'll take the feeders off. Close up the door on the side. I use this for straw for the nesting boxes. And then I'll move it. So I'll make sure I don't run over any chickens. And then all I'm doing is moving this just so that when they poop, it will disperse the nitrogen across all of the ground. It's best when you move it to not move it onto a bare spot. it's always good to have good growing stuff there that could start consuming that nitrogen when it becomes available. But you can see they enjoy this feed. And then I'll take this, hook it right back up. But we keep these feeders full all the time. With a small flock, you don't have to do that. Approximately a quarter a cup or a quarter a pound of food per chicken per day, so it's not really very much. 135 chickens right now for us go through 500 pounds of feed in between 10 and 11 days. So it does add up, but we're right now getting 80, 90 eggs a day. So with that, this system, if we wanted to at night, when all of our chickens go up in, you can actually close the coop door, hook it up to your lawn tractor, ATV, four-wheeler, take the fences down, throw them on top, and then you have literally a chicken kit that you can move wherever you'd like on your property and wherever you need them. So we want to have happy animals, but we also want to make sure that our land doesn't sacrifice, and we don't want to create erosion problems later on down the road. So with that, I really appreciate you guys watching our video. If you check on our Facebook page, our business is The Blended Homestead, where we post videos very similar to this all the time on raising things in your garden, beekeeping, pigs, a lot of just homesteading things that we really enjoy and we like to share with other people and try to grow agriculture for West Virginia. Before I conclude, I wanted to thank two people. Our WVU Extension agent, Karen Cox. She was the first one that really helped us develop and grow, chicken questions, land access, all of that. And then we also want to give a shout out as well to our Department of Agriculture business coordinator, Lacey Davidson. She has been monumental in helping us be able to grow so that we can get our product out. It's good to get 80 eggs a day, but if you don't have people buying 80 eggs a day, you start having problems. And you start having a lot of boiled eggs. So just want to thank them and make sure you reach out and ask questions. I asked so many questions and I'm still learning every day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you around.
All right. Thanks, Eric. That was, I learned a lot during that. And if you guys haven't been over, make sure to check the chat box. Eric has shared a lot of really great information there about the cost of his chicken tractor, the importance of fencing. Eric, anything else you want to share about your layer operation before we transition over to processing?
Is there anything you can think of?
No, you hit it all in the video.
All right. Yeah, this is my wife Brianna as well. But yeah, we encourage it. Any questions or anything, get a hold of us and let us know. We are learning constantly, and we'd much rather help other people get a little step ahead so you don't have as many losses like we did in the beginning.
Hey, Eric, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of for the sake of this recording here, would you care to just kind of hit again the worm load comment you were talking about and the cost of your coop, just kind of to bring those up out loud there?
Yeah, so the plans that I started with for the coop was Justin Rhodes on, if you want to learn, he is called the Permaculture Chicken Ninja on YouTube. He has really a lot of good videos of homesteading. I think he's got close to 1 million followers. Yeah. High quality videos, but the plans were it would be called the Chickshaw 2.0. So if you look that up, I think it's abundantpermaculture.com. But that one was 6 feet by 6 feet. So it takes me the same amount of time to feed 20 laying chickens as it does 40. So, I have to take, some more trips to the store, but it's worth it minimizing our time. So instead of doing a 6 by 6 one, I increased it to 8 by 8. So it made it a little more difficult to move with the wheel system that he had. So I had purchased a trailer off of Craigslist for about $100, and then I just mounted that on top of the mobile trailer. And then so the side that you saw me pulling, that is just a 2-inch ball hitch that you can hook up to your lawn tractor or your 4-wheeler or anything and move it with no problem.
But the plans that Justin has online, it tells you exactly what to buy from Lowe's. So Eric put in an order and just went and picked it up. So it made it very easy, and it tells you exactly what you need. The board cuts and everything.
And what was all the worm load question? With chickens, we don't really have to worry about worms as much, but it's more importantly with our pigs. The parasitic worms that live in pigs have a life. The shortest ones have a lifespan of 21 days. So if we can rotate our pigs before that 21 days, they are not able to reproduce. Which is important, so we don't have to use antibiotics or anything for our pigs. But then chickens, if you would have to worm your chickens, then you would have to do an exclusion period. I think when you give them the medicine that'll kill worms, I think you can't sell or you can't consume any of the eggs for like about a week or so. I don't know. I'm not good at worming, but because we don't really have to do it. So does anyone else have any other questions?
Eric, the continuation on the question about the grass that the chickens pick, how clean they pick it, but after you've moved it, how long till the ground recovers and it starts growing again?
This year has been weird because we've had really wet periods and then really dry periods. But then in the past, I noticed that it was probably about a week out, and then you wouldn't even know that there were chickens there. The only thing that you would be able to notice is that the grass is a lot darker where the chickens were because of the amount of nitrogen from their poop.
Now, we do 3 different runs of chickens. I think this year we're going to try to do 4, but we don't run them in the same spot because we don't want to burn the grass in that area. So we have 3 different rows of 3 so that we're not burning the grass and it's not getting too much nitrogen. So we make sure that we have enough space in our field to separate it out instead of running them all in the same spot because the grass and the ground can't handle that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any last questions for Eric? We'll also we'll stick around at the end for just general questions. But anything else specific you guys want to ask before we move on to processing? All right, well, I am going to share my screen. Well, first, I'm going to introduce again, Park Ferguson with Elmcrest Farm. He's sitting here, and I'll just let him say a few words before we start in on the processing video.
I'm just, sitting here thinking about poultry, and, I know this is related to homesteading. So I'm just, going to say, think about your scale, where you are. And I think just, know your goals and, figure out that right number of chickens to start with, where you can have enough for you to eat and sell a little. Because this is definitely something that I think it's good to kind of grow into. And, it's good to kind of know your scale and that starting point, because there are a lot of different ways that you can do this. So I just kind of I was sitting here thinking about that.
All right, so I am going to play our next video. It's about 10 minutes. So after that, we'll field questions for both of our speakers. And I'll go ahead and just forewarn everybody, this is on poultry processing, and it does show the entire process of processing a chicken. So you have been forewarned before I launch this video. All right, we're here at Elmcrest Farm with Park Ferguson, who's going to walk us through the harvesting process of on-farm pastured poultry. Park, we've been to Eric Blend's farm, Blended Homestead, and he walked us through his fields with his flocks. But tell us a little bit more about the process, taking them off the field and putting them through the processing process.
So we wait till they're about 7 or 8 weeks of age, and just depending on the time of year, we make a decision of when we think they're ready. What we do here, we load them up on a stock trailer, or maybe put them in dog crates or something, and get them up here to the house where we have water and electric and all that. And then we do them in our garage. And today we've rented a mobile poultry processing unit that has all the equipment that you need mounted in place. It's portable, so it's really nice to have that.
So Park, you mentioned you use a mobile processing trailer. Tell us about that. How do you come up with that?
The West Virginia Farmers Market Association has the trailers. They're available for rent. We contact Terry Hudson. He's in Charleston. He's a well-known farmer of produce and some poultry and other products. And we reach out to him, and he allows us to rent it at a cost of $15 per day.
We are here at Elmcrest Farm for Poultry Processing Day. This is Park Ferguson. He's going to walk us through the process of pastured poultry harvesting.
Okay. So as far as processing, the first step is the kill cones. And basically what we do, you stuff them in there upside down. You kind of fish around and find their heads. And then with a knife, people have different techniques. I just make a good slice right above their jawbone there, and that'll cut the jugular. And they'll bleed out within a minute or two. From the kill cones, they go into the scalder. It's a hot water bath, somewhere between 140 and 150 degrees. And it loosens their feathers. This thing has some baskets that rotate to turn them. You could also use like a turkey fryer at home and just dunk them. It's important that they move around so that the water gets down to where their feathers meet their skin and loosen them up. So anywhere between 30 and 60 seconds in here. This has an automatic timer, so I've got it set on 1 minute. Our temp is about 145. That seems to be working today. It's a little cooler outside. Has stopped and quit spinning. We just want to check them real quick and pull some wing feathers, which are their tougher feathers. If they come out pretty easily, then they're ready to go into the plucker. This big plucker can hold 4 at a time. It tends to do well with these ones. So we're going to turn it on, let it spin, and turn off the water. So you can see they're pretty good and clean. There's still a few feathers left. We designate a person to further clean them. Today Jeannie is on that job, and she just picks out the last little bit of feathers and makes them look perfect.
All right, next step, we're here with Jamie Ferguson, the lead eviscerator at Elmcrest Poultry Production. He's going to walk us through how to break down the chicken, or how to eviscerate the chicken. So walk us through the process, Jamie. You just...
Okay. First, I took the feet off of it, and very simply just rock back on them, and they just cut right off. Next, I'm going to go up and work on the crop and the esophagus a little bit, which will make the removal of the entrails easier. Just going to do a couple of cuts here to loosen some of this stuff up so that whenever I pull from the rear, it pretty much comes out. There is a cavity between the throat and the breast that we're going to make a little hole in. Next, I come to the rear of the chicken about 1 inch below the breastplate. I'm going to make a slight cut through the skin. You want to be careful now. Here's where you really got to be careful and keep clean. Not to go too deep because you might nick part of the intestines and get a product that you don't really want in your chicken. Okay, there we've made a cut, okay? I am going to stick my hand clear back up into the chest cavity underneath the breast, and I'm feeling for the heart. Once I reach the heart, that gives me a little bit of something to hold on to. Pull.
How about the organ?
Here comes the esophagus.
Okay.
There's the guts. And the ideal way to do this is get everything out of the body and not have any fluids from the intestines or any of the other organs in the body. I'm going to come back here right above the tail. Here's the chicken's rear end. I'm going to cut down through, right above the tail, above the butt, and pull that all out in one piece.
All right, wow.
There you have a bird that the entrails are removed. I can still see part of the esophagus. Next thing I'm after is the lungs. And you just got to go in and kind of fish those out with your fingers. There's a lung.
And they make tools for that too. Some people use the lung scrapers. Not necessarily essential.
Okay. There's a bird that has had its entrails removed. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to work on the front end a little bit. Try to get the rest of the crop and the esophagus out. I can see it here. And you're just kind of pulling on it. You may need a knife to loosen it.
Kind of sticks to the underside of the skin, huh?
But there comes the crop, and here comes the esophagus, or the trachea, whatever, up to the head. Next thing I'm going to do is remove the head, very simply by breaking the neck, cutting the skin, the head just comes right off. All right, there's your bird. Probably takes 3 to 5 minutes to, got one.
Great.
Next step is I'm going to take him over to fresh water, rinse it good. Then he's going into a cold water bath for about 30 minutes. And then from the cold water bath, you're going to go into a ice cooler with more ice to really chill the bird down.
Obviously, it's not a fun job cutting these things' heads off. It's not really something that I enjoy, but the way that I feel about it is if you're going to eat meat, that you should take part in the process. And compared to the way that these things are raised on an industrial scale, we do it in a way that gives back to the ground that they're on. They have a healthier and happier life. They eat grass, they eat bugs. It fertilizes the ground, rather than having a negative environmental impact. And then none of their guts, none of their feathers, none of their blood goes to waste. We use that to mix it with carbon, wood chips or something, and make compost out of it. So every step in this process kind of goes back to feed another cycle that we utilize later down the road.
So this series is geared toward folks who are currently homesteading or looking into getting into homesteading. Speak to someone who has interest in this but has never done it before. Is this more of an entry-level thing? Should you have some experience? Where can you get experience?
I think it's profitable, number one, at any scale. It's we raise chickens because we like to eat chicken, number one. Now we raise enough for us to eat and enough that we can sell them and recoup our costs and have a little extra income from them. So pasture poultry, you know, if you do the math, it is a profitable thing. They cost a little more than what you'd find at the store, but once your customers try them and you build that customer base, you'll find that you'll have very loyal customers because it is just such a higher quality product than what anyone else, you know, can get from any grocery store. Go ahead.
So speak to the customer for a second. If I'm someone who's been, you know, traditionally buying most of my meat at the grocery store, but I'm interested in buying a local chicken, is it going to taste different? Is it going to look different? Am I going to have to do anything extra before I cook it like I normally would? What's the difference?
The difference is that these are raised on pasture, and they've had a bigger variety of forage from clover and bugs and grass, where store-bought chickens typically don't. Everyone I've talked to, especially, you know, more elderly people, they say this is what chicken used to taste like. This tastes like the chicken my grandma made, you know, on Sunday for Sunday dinner. So you know, they say everything in the world tastes like chicken, but until you experience these, you don't know what chicken really tastes like.
All right. So that sums up the second half of our presentation, and I will open it up for questions now to our second presenter. This is Park Ferguson, again from Elmcrest Farm in Wayne, West Virginia. Any questions for him out there? Well, we did have some come through on the chat box, so I will go ahead and mention a couple of things that popped up. Russ asked, what's done with the innards, Park?
So I mentioned that in the video. We typically just will bury them in wood chips. The carbon
Unknown participant
in the
is
wood
now
will
exiting.
pretty much neutralize the odors. You probably will still have, you know, some predators get into them, but we'll just stop the guys at AEP. We live on a road, you know, where the guys will park their big trucks, so we always flag them down and have them drop loads of wood chips, and then we'll just take our front end loader on the tractor and you know, kind of open up a spot and just drop all the guts and feathers down in there. And once those guts, you know, start to rot, the bacteria that's in their manure and all that kind of starts to eat and break down those wood chips, you know, as well as the nitrogen that comes from their feathers and everything else. So it's just kind of one ingredient to making compost that, you know, goes on garden beds or you know, other things later.
And on that note, Eric also mentioned some of those innards you can actually sell. People love chicken livers, chicken hearts, chicken gizzards. I think Park has definitely seen that as well.
Yeah, we don't typically do anything with the gizzards. The livers and the hearts will sometimes get requests for, not too frequently. We will save and bag them, and if nobody comes asking for them, you know, we'll just eat them, you know, over the course of the year. And I'll keep going here. We typically sell whole chickens, and that's our preference, just because you have additional costs in breaking them down. And, you know, we'll process maybe 70 or 80 at a time. And by the time we're done, just with what you saw, we usually don't really want to cut them up a whole lot more. You know, there are people who will request it especially, and we'll tell them a price for that. But our preference is just to sell the whole bird.
Another question came in from Andy J. And Park, I don't know if you want to answer this or one of the Department of Ag folks, but do you have to be certified to process and sell your own chickens?
Well, I'll start, and anybody at the department can correct me if I make any mistakes. West Virginia, probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, passed some legislation to have an on-farm poultry and rabbit exemption. So you can process your own chickens and rabbits. It's either 20 or 25,000 for chickens, and I believe 5,000 for rabbits. And you can process them at home for sale in state. So you cannot, you know, take them over to Ohio or, you know, wherever near you and sell them. but you can do it in state. And there are other, things you need to adhere to, like having proper labeling. We didn't show in the video, but we will bag these things, shrink wrap, bag them, and put our label on it that has, the farm name and address, the date that they were processed, the weight. So that's also really important. If we're doing, we may have like a small batch every now and then just for ourselves, or even just like our laying hens, the old ones that we call, maybe in the fall. So we'll sometimes just put them in Ziplocs too, just buy those big, like 2-gallon Ziplocs at the store. So, as I said earlier, there's a lot of different ways you can go about raising and processing poultry. And it doesn't always have to be fancy. We've processed 50 chickens with cut road cones and dipped them in a turkey fryer and plucked them by hand and put them in Ziplocs before. So it doesn't always have to be real fancy and high tech. But if you're doing a bunch, that equipment helps. It saves a lot of time. And it also ensures, good bagging, packaging, stuff like that ensures that you have a product that people are going to like and come back for.
Hey, Park, I got a question for you. This is Dane here. So where, I guess, are you all mostly selling or marketing your products? Are you selling mostly directly to consumers in the area? Are you selling to a lot of restaurants? I know you all are pretty close to Huntington and stuff.
Sure, we do not sell to any restaurants, and that's just mainly because of our price point. Our costs, it can cost us between $10 and $12. I mean, depending on. I know when we first started, it was the first round we did, I think cost us like $13 per chicken, which you can buy a whole chicken at Walmart for like $7. So we typically just sell direct to the end consumer. Some of our strategies, I think Eric said his 4th year. This is our 4th year also. We will typically, we hit farmers markets with our produce and our other products, and we'll have a sign, ask about the pastured chicken, ask about the meat chickens. And we'll usually just try to get a list of customers lined up. We do have a considerable amount of freezer space, but not enough to just throw a whole batch in the freezer and keep forever. So we do everything we can to have them sold before we process. And now in our 4th year, you've got people coming back, and you might have a new customer that buys 1 and they call you a week later and want 6 or 10. And now we're having people that, I think, let's see, we just processed 80. We sold out before we processed, and we sold 80 chickens to maybe 10 or 12 people. So everybody was getting 6 and 10 or 20. So it just seems to kind of snowball, once you kind of get that customer base. But you definitely, we do a lot of ads on Facebook. And as I mentioned, the farmers market, you definitely want to get it out there that these are coming. We use the pasture, that they're raised on pasture. We feed non-GMO feed. So we've got some kind of key words and key processes that we do that grab people's interest. And it's easy to sell them on it just being such a higher quality product. And, once they taste it, they come back.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, and we actually just got 2 questions from Andy there. Does the plucker damage the chicken? And also, when you're after you process, do you date the product? So I guess that would be on your required label there for your exemption.
It is, yeah. You'll definitely want to date on your label. The pluckers can do some damage, and I really think the key comes back to your scald. If you maybe have them scalded at too high of a temperature, the plucker can tear the skin. It's not, it's uncommon, but sometimes you'll pull one out and it might have like broken a leg or a wing. Stuff like that can happen. The plucker in the video was from the trailer, and it's a lot bigger. We own a plucker too, of our own that only does 2 chickens at a time. And I feel like ours is a little more delicate than the one that we used in the video. So it's just situational, but I really think the most important part is having a good scald. Making sure that you've got it at the right temperature, that it moves around and it's in there for the right amount of time. Not too long, because you'll actually start to cook the meat on the outside. So you want to be cautious about that. But if you have a perfect scald, then you're going to have a better pluck, and you won't have to leave it in there as long.
All right. Any last questions for either Park or Eric this evening? We've got a few more slides. I know we're 13 past the hour, but we've got a couple more slides we're going to show, just mainly for resources here. So I'm going to re-share my screen. I don't think I need audio this time. So there's the contact information again for our mentors. We've added a couple of others. Our professor up in Morgantown, and then if you're over in the Eastern Panhandle, we've got another pastured poultry producer over there. Park at Elmcrest Farm, his contact info is here, as well as Eric. So feel free to jot that down. I'll give you another second here on this slide, and reach out to those folks if you have more questions after today. And then Beth, are you still with us on the call? Do you want to give a quick shout out about our West Virginia Grown program? I know both of these producers that presented tonight, I think, are members of the program.
Yeah, I think so. Sure. I'll just take a few minutes, but yeah, like you have the slide in front of you, the logo in front of you, but West Virginia Grown is our branding program for agricultural products in West Virginia. That means you can use the logo on your product if it is grown or 50% value added in West Virginia. The program actually has been around since the 1980s, but in 2018 we rebranded the program, which came up with this new logo. Prior to that, it was a different logo that they had used basically since the 1980s. So it was a time for a kind of a refresh and a rebrand. And also, when we rebranded, we kind of wiped the slate clean and asked everyone to reapply. So we were just sure that we had current producers, people that were still in business. And since then, we have just kept growing the program. I think we're currently close to 200 members since 2018, when, like I said, we wiped the slate clean and asked everyone to reapply or apply for the first time. Definitely growing weekly, adding new members weekly. Hold on just one second. Sorry about that. West Virginia, it's a no-cost program. It's a simple application. It basically gathers information about your operation, what you're producing, just general contact information, very simple. You're asked to sign a user agreement for using the logo. You can get the logo as a sticker to put on your product, or you can get an electronic file, which I think Eric actually does for his chickens, and then it's printed on your label. There's other benefits. We're actually putting together our first directory, printed directory, since we rebranded, and that hopefully we got a little bit behind with COVID and the shutdown, but we are hopefully going to print in the next month, and that'll be our first printed directory since the rebranding. So if you were a member as of December of 2019, you'll be included in that directory, and then that will be an annual print, so we'll print one again next year. We also, if you're a member, of course, you can use the logo. We can do some printing for you. We can do banners. We can do kind of retail signs, the directory, of course. Certainly marketing opportunities with events we do in-state, as well as international marketing opportunities that we work with our West Virginia grown companies to do. And I don't want to take too much time. So with that, I will say we have a dedicated email address for the program, which is wvgrown@wvda.us, and we can put that in the chat box as well. So please, if you have any questions about the program or just want an application, feel free to call our office or certainly use that email address, and we can get that out to you as soon as we can. If anyone has any questions, again, put it in the chat box and we'll make sure you get an answer.
Thanks, Beth.
You're welcome.
And you guys have heard from Dane a couple of times this evening. You've seen his face, but he, I think, is still on the call and can tell you a little bit more about another one of our programs in the Business Development Division. Dane, are you here?
Hey, yep, I'm still here. Like we talked about earlier, I'm the program coordinator for the Veterans and Warriors to Agriculture program, and our mission is to help with the integration and support of veterans entering or currently working in agriculture to benefit their health and welfare, and that extends to their immediate families, Gold Star families, Guard, Reserve personnel, and members of, or family members of those who've since deceased since their service and were honorably discharged. If you or anybody you know falls into those categories, I mean, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk and help out. We've got a few members on our team. We also have Mary Dickerson and Monica Schwab. They're both on the team, the vets team there with me. So you can reach any of us. We're kind of there to be an interface for you, to help you access the West Virginia Department of Agriculture and find resources and information. But we also are there to provide support and education for resources that are outside of our department as well. And we also do our own bit of programming to help bring education and training to veterans across the state. So there's our contact info, vets2ag@wvda.us, or you can call us there at the office, 558-2210. That'll take you to the main line, and they'll get you sent out to one of us there. And but yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll do what we can to help you out.
Awesome. Thanks, Dane. And we just have one last slide here. I'll make one last plug for our division again. In the last few years, we have added planning coordinators to the Business Development Division. So myself, you can see the county shaded in green. Again, this is Lacey, and I cover the Southwest region part of the state. We've got Lacey Davidson, who's also, you've seen her over there in the chat box. She's the orange northern counties. Ashley is also here on the call. She's the purple counties, our newest addition to the team. We're super excited to have her. And Nathan Bergdahl, he's covering the Eastern Panhandle. He's shaded in blue. So I don't know, our contact information is pretty small there. But again, like Dane said, you can call the main line at the Department of Agriculture, tell them what county you live in, where you're farming, or where your food business is, or where you're interested. If you're interested in getting into business, we can certainly help you at every step in the process. We work with folks who are just dreaming about starting a food and farm business, or folks who have been in the game for several years, but they're maybe looking for new markets, or they're looking to upgrade their current business model. So we are here to, as kind of resource coordinators, to help connect you with resources that you may not even know exist right there in and around your own region or across the state. So feel free to reach out.
What about the other counties?
The other counties, we definitely don't leave out. Thanks for mentioning that. We certainly tag team and help anybody who's in any of those other counties that we don't cover. Also, if you live in one of those other counties, you're interested in joining our team, I think we're always taking applications. We're looking to fill those spots. But we've got a great team at the Business Development Division. It's not just the three or the four of us planning coordinators, and you see our assistant director, Mary's picture there. But we have a really awesome team. Beth, you heard, Dane, you heard, he mentioned Monica, and we've got John and Casey Bowden. We've got a great team who work really closely together, some great secretaries, administrative assistants. We talk, daily, weekly, So get in touch with any of us and we'll get you the resources that you need, no matter which county you live in.
Hey, Lacey, sorry to interrupt one more time here. There was something I meant to mention earlier. So I'm actually about to add a link here in the chat box to take a survey. It'll take all of probably 30 seconds or a minute. If you all wouldn't mind filling it out, that will help us kind of track. I mean, we love doing these things, and if it's something that you found has been beneficial, or if you think there's ways that we can improve, we definitely want to hear, because we want to bring useful things to you all. So please take the time to fill it out. It'll take just a sec.
Yes, super important. Thank you, Dane. We'll just make a plug for next week, same time, same place here on Teams at 6 p.m. You'll hear from Chuck and Casey Gaiser on kitchen gardening. So make sure to save the date on your calendar and join us back next week. All right, that is the end of my slideshow. We'll stay on the line for another couple of minutes if anybody has any last questions they want to ask or conversation. We'll keep the lines open. But thanks so much for joining us. Again, try to take that survey. We'd love to hear your feedback, what you liked, didn't like, what you'd like to see more of. Thanks, everyone.